544 KTSM 915-544-5876 or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, including facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways you can interact with us, particularly in the conversation throughout the shows. We got Leroy Chuck and Calvin Williams chiming in and joining us already. A conversation throughout the program there. Bunch of stuff to talk about here today, including that long-promised deep dive we're going to be doing with a local organization that has done study into some of the issues that we are seeing in our region of the border, and also a bit of a conversation about this administration's stab at the Remain in Mexico, so-called, also known more officially as Migrant Protection Protocols, or MPP, of which a lot of stuff coming through that here today. Even most specifically, we had candidate, the current Texas Land Commissioner, and of course candidate for Texas Attorney General George P. Bush, nephew of the former governor and president here of Texas, starting off his Secure the Border tour here in El Paso. Yesterday, specifically, it started here, but I missed that notice yesterday, voicing support for border wall construction and the Remain in Mexico policy here. So that's one issue, definitely affecting it here. One other I want to mention here, we're going to do a short first segment so we can get into that extended interview that we had with the Hope Border Institute. One other thing I want to mention that definitely affects a lot of the conversations we have and how things will look going forward is that of what the city and county's response is going to be during this holiday season. Of course, it's not an unimportant thing. Leroy Chuck asking a question, is Texas paying for border wall now? I believe that there is both the donated portions and some state funds that have gone to the state-built portions of it as done through part of the whatever special legislative session. I've lost track. But yes, there is portions that Texas is working on from kind of both aspects, both taxpayer-paid and donation-based, which is still an interesting concept there. Leroy Chuck asking that over on the Facebook page. But one thing I did want to mention here is that city and county had a joint news conference again today. Hear a little bit more about it. But the most significant thing coming out of it, they're about the COVID-19 rise that has been being tracked in their area. Nowhere near where we were at this point last year, thank goodness. But most significantly coming out of it, it was particularly County Judge Ricardo Samaniego said that they will not issue any more mandates during this period. As we also have Edgar Ortiz joining us over on the Facebook page. So that means that whatever is going to be going on this winter season, this travel season, not going to lie, I have myself planned to get tested when I get back, even though I've got the vaccinations going on. So, I mean, weighing risk factors here for me is certainly a factor, but that Samaniego, as reported by our news partners over at KFOX 14, saying that mandates were issued in the past because there was no vaccine, but now that there is a vaccine, they won't be making any mandates. But you still might see some changes around town. More specifically, I mentioned that they've been meeting with restaurant associations, Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and other organizations in town to educate the community on wearing face masks and vaccines. So I guess you might see an uptick potentially of individual businesses putting that kind of thing up, but only time will tell there. So we're going to take that first break here a little bit earlier than usual so we can get into an extended conversation here in the next segment with the Hope Border Institute. We'll get into the issues there, their new report out, and then, of course, have the discussion about it. So keep those questions in mind as we come back from this break here on Talk El Paso. Comments going on over on Facebook pages, YouTube, all that stuff. Back after a minute, more Talk El Paso. Getting geared up for this kind of a show takes a lot of effort and energy, and something I do to be useful for myself anyway, and you might find it useful for you as well, is Clever Tea. Klevertea is in the stuff that you drink. I got a cup of it right here next to me right now because it's my companion here going into this kind of a show. It is supporting my efforts in being an active and articulate, hopefully, but more honestly, just aware and entertaining part of your day here as we talk about the major issues that affect us here in the borderland, and it gives me the boost of energy, focus, and calm that's a hard thing to find in combination or even individually, but their Oolong Wise blend, which is a delicious blend of a decent kick of caffeine, to be honest, but it's got the coconut, pineapple, hibiscus, eucalyptus, hawthorn berry, and cinnamon. You can find it online for yourself at clevertea.com. Again, KLEVRTEA.com. And make sure that in your next order to enter the code radio15 at checkout and get your discount on it. Plus, they are out in the community, particularly with all the markets going on for this holiday season. It's even more important to shop local. So clevertea.com, your major source for everything, order or where they're going to be. Follow them on social media as well. And also check out their store, 230 North Copia. You can get samples and see what the new things they're working on in as well. So all of that, clevertea.com. That's KLEVRTEA.com.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Checking your El Paso freeways, got delays on the I-10 eastbound between Trans Mountain all the way down to Red with stop-and-go traffic. I-10 westbound between Wrestler and Thorne. Got an injury accident reported at Dyer Street at Will Ruth with EMS on the scene. Roadwork has closed the Chelsea on- and off-ramps onto and from Paisano through Friday this week. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
If you love stories, listen to Red Pilled America, where this week we answer the question, why are dogs considered man's best friend? By telling the story of our near-death experience with a ferocious canine. Listen to Red Pilled America on the iHeartRadio app. That's Red Pilled America.
Hey parents, here's some good news for America's future. Kids ages 5 to 11 are now eligible for a COVID vaccine. That means all those future CEOs and artists, world-class chefs and sports stars, the engineers and the innovators are eligible for a vaccine that can help protect their future. And it's specifically formulated just for them. Find vaccines near you at vaccines.gov. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
I love the holidays, but I don't love being roommates with my siblings again. That's why I skip all the screaming matches and stay at Red Roof, so I can truly celebrate and relax in my own comfortable, clean, affordable room. Pets stay free at Red Roof, so I can bring Fido and decompress after a long day of small talk with the family without breaking the bank. And this season, you can get up to 20% off. Book your own space at redroof.com.
From Oscar-winning producers Brian Grazer and Ron Howard, MSNBC Films presents the story of visionary French artist J.R. Paper and Glue. Friday, December 10th at 10 p.m. Eastern on MSNBC and select theaters now.
Talk El Paso, airing weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM, focused on local businesses, local politics, local impacts of the day's news. Brought to you in part by Thrive 915 Food Fest. Join the conversation Monday through Friday at 4, and let's talk El Paso.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways to interact with the show, a lot of ways to participate in it here. A lot of comments going on over on our social pages as well. We got Edgar Ortiz, Joey Carlson, Leroy, Chuck, Calvin Williams, and more tuning in and chiming in specifically here. Leroy Chuck saying what I'm assuming is facetiously, how am I supposed to know what's safe or not if the city leaders won't tell me what to do? I'm assuming you're joking. But at the same time, there's a lot of people out there that wouldn't be joking and making such a statement now, would it? That's like half of my concern and how we deal with things going forward is the people who, like, literally, I've heard that way too much, like, well, they didn't say that I could or couldn't, therefore, like, come on, have a thought in your head. But shopping cart theory, ability to self-govern, all of that is all wrapped up in this. So, well, the solution that I've got anyways, we'll keep talking about it as we do every Monday through Friday, 4 to 5 p.m. here. So I'll get more into that here. But going now into an extended interview of a discussion we've been having for a minute now about immigration's issues, and I've been promising for a minute. So we're doing a little bit longer interview than usual based on all the vectors that go into it. So the Hope Border Institute, a local immigration advocacy organization that does interesting studies into the issues just beyond our border. Their most recent one called No Queda de Otra, an exploration of the root causes of forced migration to the southern border. I am sure that plenty of people will have plenty of thoughts here on this, as we always do on all of our subjects. But we're going to have this extended interview with them on this factor, the study that they've done with people that showed up in our area and then we're through immigration, what that actually means. And then we'll definitely open up the calls and comments there. So take those as you will. But so right now, going to be having that interview. Enjoy. Joining me now, we have Hannah Hollenberg, the policy specialist with the Hope Border Institute. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
So you are also, in addition to that, author of a recent report that has now come out focusing on some of these border issues that we've been focusing on a lot lately, most specifically that of what are some of the factors driving what we see directly in our region. What is that new report you all have?
Sure. So the report is called No Queda de Otra, which translates to There Was No Other Choice. It's focused on the root causes of migration. So I interviewed 51 individuals in Ciudad Juarez who were seeking asylum or migrating. And I asked them about why they had to leave their country. Participants came from Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, Mexico. Many people I interviewed were from southern Mexico, as well as some participants from Cuba, Ecuador, and Colombia. And so I asked them, essentially, why did you have to leave? What brought you here, and what happened along the way?
And so that report again out here in the last couple of weeks here, and again to clarify, people didn't pick that up. You were one of the main authors of this report, right?
Yes, I'm the lead researcher and author of the report.
So what led to the factors of wanting to put this together? This is something that, a wheelhouse that Hope Border Institute is very focused on. If people, haven't heard of them or have missed our previous interviews we've done with you all, very much focused on not just even, the issues within our immediate region, but study into the deeper ones that contribute to it is something you all very much do. But this specific report, what led you wanting to put this together here in this, recent era?
So we are part of a root causes initiative, along with Faith in Action and a coalition of people throughout Central America, Mexico, and the US. And it's a mostly Catholic faith-based group that was founded in 2019 to discuss and come up with solutions for addressing the root causes of migration. Because we know that there are some very deep and long-standing structural factors that push people out of their country, and when they reach the border, that all gets reduced to, it's illegal migration and this person made a bad choice. And when we think about people in that way, and we think about their choices in that way, and criminalize their arrival at the border, criminalize their need to migrate, we're ignoring completely the many layers of economic and social, political factors that are driving them and that are leaving them with no other choice, that are preventing them from thriving at home. So this initiative was created to respect what we call the right to migrate. So people do have the right to migrate, of course, and then the right not to migrate, which is the right to live and thrive at home and have everything you need at home to get ahead and to live a good life.
Very interesting foundation for it. So let's get into the report itself here and what some of the findings were. Again, you mentioned it was 50 plus individual interviews going into this. What were some of the major findings that you then have published in this new report?
Sure. So there's many layers of themes that came up, but the primary one was that the people I interviewed had tried many different options. They had been through a number of different harmful experiences, and they had done everything they possibly could to address that and to fight for themselves. And ultimately, there was just no other choice. And migration was the last option for them. It was what they felt they had to do to survive. So in the case of many of the families from southern Mexico and from throughout Central America, people were paying enormous sums of money that was being extorted from them by gangs, especially small business owners, agricultural workers. People were being extorted for up to half of their income, and they really had no other option than to keep paying, and would face threats and violence if they didn't pay that money. And the extortion would ramp up and ramp up and ramp up until it was an untenable situation and people felt they had to flee. The people from southern Mexico especially were experiencing extremely high levels of violence in the community. They described a conflict that was incredibly violent, where people essentially couldn't leave home. There was forced conscription of men and boys, where essentially a cartel or a criminal organization would go door to door and pull people out to join them and to fight for them. The cartels would destroy the freeways, the highways, so that people couldn't leave. There were shortages of food, shortages of medicine, businesses closed. So that was the situation that the participants from states like Michoacan and Guerrero described. And then in Central America, you had some of the factors like threats and extortion, as well as poverty, like people who were doing their absolute best, trying to work, even though there wasn't a lot of work available, trying to make a living and get ahead, but just they were not able to do that. There was not enough work. There was not enough opportunity. There was not enough access to services. So families who were already maybe struggling to find work, perhaps having to pay significant chunks of their income to a gang, and then families who had a member who was disabled or who had a special healthcare need were experiencing this threefold harm and this threefold poverty, which just made it incredibly difficult for people to get ahead. So, for example, I interviewed this one woman. She and her children, her older children, tried to work, but there wasn't work available. Her husband was very abusive and didn't support the family at all. And then she had a young daughter with a serious illness that left her, I believe, almost paralyzed. And so they were a very poor family, but they had to travel to Guatemala City. They were from Guatemala. They had to travel there at least once a month, maybe more, to get treatment for the little girl who had the paralysis. And so she looked at her situation. She concluded that really the best option so that her kids could study and could get ahead was to migrate to the US. And so she came with her youngest child, and she was basically stuck in a shelter in Juarez instead of being able to travel to New Jersey to be with her brother. So we found that there were these many different experiences, including gender-based violence and violence based on people's sexuality. And then when you added the economic impact of the pandemic and the hurricanes Eta and Iota that hit Central America in November of last year, it really drove people to a new level of desperation. So people who are already really suffering, the pandemic and climate change sort of hit them. It was like a
kind of a
it hit them.
double whammy going on there.
It was a double whammy. People who were already experiencing very difficult situations were heavily impacted by the pandemic and climate change.
Again, if you're just joining us, guest right now is Hannah Hollenberg, a policy specialist with the Hope Border Institute, talking about their new report on root causes of migration, specifically in our area. If you want to find that report, details as it is, including maps about the origin points of the individuals interviewed and things like that, all laid out. It's a very well put together report here, and see the findings for yourself. You can visit hopeborder.org to find that. It's right on their main page, and see their findings for yourself, and particularly have that discussion here in our coming weeks. You can do so there. Again, hopeborder.org. So those are some of the interesting initial things here. Of course, we've had some shifting situations even since just this report has come out, amongst most primarily the return in the recent weeks here, both of the anticipation and now coming back into effect of the Migrant Protection Protocol's MPP so-called Remain in Mexico policy. So you said in the situation you were just describing, they're already talking with someone who was in that situation. Based on your findings here about, well, let's take a step back here with the basic level of the findings here of the major currents that you were finding there. I've seen a lot of things stem from instability within issues within the sending communities. It's also been put here that essentially come to the level of one of the discussions that has happened involving asylum and claims of migration along those lines has been about a level of state action usually being considered, if you want to kind of go by Cold War methodology anyway, of fleeing an oppressive government. But it sounds like, at least in part, what you're finding in some of these areas is that there's essentially no state actors, so that there are criminal enterprises and such essentially acting as de facto local rulers in some of these cases, it sounds like.
Yeah, well, there was definitely an absence of state protection of vulnerable people. So people who were being persecuted by a criminal organization couldn't go to the police and file a report because the police would ignore them or turn them away. There was a very clear just lack of options for people who were experiencing these harms. And as you mentioned, that kind of lack of state capacity, it's very complicated. I won't get into all of it, but the U.S. has a long history in Central America and in Mexico that has really hurt these communities. And so I think we can't ignore that. We have a history of, for example, funding right-wing governments that waged a dirty war on their own people, as is the case with El Salvador. But stepping back for a moment, so there are these root causes of migration that are pushing people to leave home against their will. And then when they come to the border, what I found from my interviews with people was that they did not feel safe in northern Mexico. Many people, in fact, all of them were living in shelters, and they did not, for the most part, step out into Ciudad Juarez because they didn't feel safe. They felt that police and gangs were monitoring them. They felt that they could be extorted. Many people had tried to cross into the US either by presenting themselves at a port of entry or crossing in between ports, and they had been expelled under the Title 42 expulsion policy, which is a policy that essentially closes off the border to asylum seekers. And after being expelled, they were kidnapped or experienced sexual violence, extorted. So people really did not feel safe in Ciudad Juarez. The Remain in Mexico policy, as you noted, is taking effect today in El Paso. It's a policy that began under the Trump era, and in fact was the brainchild of Stephen Miller, who was one of the nationalist advisors to Trump, one of the more, I would say, white supremacist advisors. And so the Biden administration ended that program and paroled in many of the people who had been subjected to it. But here we are in December 2021, and they've restarted the program. They are under a court order, but they do not. But this is also from my perspective, it's a choice that they've made to re-implement this policy
A little,
and continue to expand it.
a little bit more specifically on that, one of the provisions that has basically been put forth by the Biden administration in this re-implementation, as you note, in somewhat of a complicated origin, but particularly advocates, such groups as yourselves, are having issues with it. One of the points that they have been touting is that this version of MPP Remain in Mexico is being built upon certain assurances and agreements that were being done, in this case actually done with the government of Mexico, as opposed to the way that it was under the previous administration, which there was less conversation, including this time around specifically humanitarian protections that they've been talking about, including support for organizations across the border. What are your thoughts on those and the potential impacts? Do you think that will make a difference in this case?
No. So what the Remain in Mexico policy does is it takes people who are seeking asylum in the U.S. and who have a legal right to claim fear and to be processed into the U.S. and go through an asylum process. Instead, it forces them to go back to northern Mexico and wait out their asylum case there, attend court in the U.S., and then go back to northern Mexico. The reason this is so problematic is that it's fundamentally unsafe. The program was designed to make people disappear. It was designed to make it as hard as possible for people to seek asylum and to win their asylum case. It was designed to put people in a situation where they couldn't work, where they would be kidnapped. Many people in the previous version of the program were kidnapped, assaulted, subjected to poverty and different levels of extortion. And so that was the founding purpose of Remain in Mexico. And it also makes it incredibly difficult for people to access court. So an asylum claim, asylum is one of the most complicated branches of the law that exists. And winning an asylum case is a very difficult endeavor. It requires an attorney. People don't have the right to an attorney, unfortunately, but to win a case, you have to have an attorney. Those who don't have attorneys are much less likely to win their case. And so you have to be able to, for example, speak with your attorney in a safe and private environment. You have to build a lot of evidence to support your case. You have to be able to get to court on time and be there safely, and you have to travel to the ports of entry to go to court under Remain in Mexico. None of that is possible. There's a lot of documentation of people who, for example, were on their way to their court appointment and were kidnapped, and then were deported by the judge because they hadn't showed up, but it was because they had been kidnapped. People were not able to access attorneys. They felt incredibly unsafe because of the criminal actors and even Mexican authorities who would extort them. So it's a fundamentally unsafe and wrong program. And even despite the changes that have been made, like requiring vaccines and providing resources to shelters, there's just no way to make it a better program because it's fundamentally inhumane.
One factor that has stuck with me as well, that I believe even before the implementation of this program in the previous administration, that the success of cases petitioning for asylum under these things was in the single digits, at the very least in our local region. Has that been what you have found or previously studied when this program has previously been in place?
Yeah, the grant rates, which is the rate at which people can win their asylum case, is incredibly low. But ultimately, the message I want to send here is that the root causes of migration, the factors that are forcing people to leave their homes against their will, are incredibly powerful. And the pandemic and the hurricanes were really the final straw for a lot of people. And these are resilient, hardworking people who who experienced a lot and tried every option possible before being forced to migrate. And we should honor that decision. And we also have a legal obligation as a nation to allow them to seek protection. And so I would encourage people to read the report at hopeborder.org and draw their own conclusions. But I really appreciate the opportunity to talk through this today.
Oh, absolutely. Again, guest right now has been Hannah Hollenberg, policy specialist with Hope Border Institute. Again, that website, hopeborder.org, to see the report and, come to the conclusions for yourself there. So, Hannah, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us and break down, at least in short here, some of the very complicated issues that you all have studied and the factors present in our area here today.
Thank you, Andrew.
All right, a little bit longer interview than we usually do, but this has been a very controversial topic and one I wanted to delve into in this particular way. As expected, we got a lot of comments. We got a lot of calls coming in right now. So those phone lines will be open as we're going into the break. That number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We will get into this subject and take on all the responses to it here. So stay tuned for more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Comments on the social pages and a whole lot more. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso. Something you can do to take control of your health and be a smart and informed and advocating for yourself consumer of medical services, which you definitely are one of in some way or another at some point in your life, is by tuning into the Medical Hackers with Dr. Sandeep Rao. He's a board-certified vascular interventionalist, and that helps you navigate our complex medical system on his program with insights for treatments on common medical problems and those healthcare hacks, positive sense in this case, as in life hacks. But you can tune in Saturdays at noon here on 690 or submit your own questions ahead of future programs. This week is going into thermobaric pressure in the chambers and what the benefits and factors going into that are. Email your own questions by emailing rao@medicalhackers.com, RAO@medicalhackers.com. And be sure to tune in this Saturday at noon, right after the El Paso History Radio Show here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 News Update. El Paso officials are urging residents to be careful and cautious over the holidays as COVID-19 cases continue to rise. El Paso Mayor Oscar Leeser and El Paso County Judge Ricardo Samaniego held a news conference today. Both are asking citizens to wear face masks and socially distance and get vaccinated. Samaniego said he would not be issuing any new mandates. The El Paso School Board of Trustees is expected to confirm Diana Sayavedra as the district's new superintendent. The board is meeting tonight. Sayavedra was named the sole finalist for the position last month. Texas law requires that the board wait 21 days from announcing the finalist before being able to officially hire Sayavedra. She would take over for Juan Cabrera, who left the district more than a year ago after being accused in a lawsuit of defrauding millions of dollars from investors while launching an online school. Still, Cabrera was paid more than $500,000 by the district in a severance package. This has been your KFOX 14 News Update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Checking your El Paso traffic, got reports of an accident Gateway Boulevard eastbound at Geronimo Drive. It's the off-ramp on Geronimo where the crash is located, and it's backing up traffic eastbound on Gateway all the way back to the 54. I-10 eastbound is slow and go from Trans Mountain all the way down to Red. You've got about 10-minute delays I-10 westbound between Wrestler and Thorne, and Dyer Street and Will Ruth. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. We've got another cold night tonight with partly to mostly cloudy skies and winds to 10 miles an hour. Overnight in El Paso, lower to mid 40s. Las Cruces, upper 30s, near 40. We'll see a pretty nice day for your Thursday. A bit on the windy side, though, with winds to around 25 miles an hour, but temperature-wise, mid to upper 60s. Our cold front arrives late on Friday, but rain chances begin overnight Thursday into your Friday morning.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's Breakfast Biscuit Sandwich. Just $1. Wendy's knows a better breakfast starts with a better biscuit. That's why you can get a hot and buttery Wendy's breakfast biscuit with bacon or sausage, fresh cracked egg, and cheese for just $1. Get your Wendy's Buck Biscuit Sandwich today. Limited time only. at participating U.S. Wendy's.
Hey folks, this is Andrew J. Polk. I'm all about local, and El Paso-based Clever Tea is changing how to stay refreshed and focused in the borderland and beyond with a masterfully crafted blend of hand-picked oolong tea infused with crisp pineapple, creamy coconut, and more in every sip with just the right amount of sweetness. Find it in boxes and bottles at the Brown Street Market, CBD Vita, Upper Valley Mercantile, House of Hoops, and Muscle Confusion Gym, and Cooking Time. Or order online and find special discounts at clevertea.com. That's KLEVRT.com.
Struggling with CPAP? Now there's Inspire, the only FDA-approved obstructive sleep apnea treatment that works inside the body to treat the root cause of sleep apnea with just the click of a button. No mask, no hose, just sleep. Visit InspireSleep.com to learn more.
Discover matches all the cash back you earn on your credit card at the end of your first year. It's amazing because Discover is accepted at 99% of places in the U.S. that take credit cards. Learn more at discover.com/yes. 2021 Nielsen Report limitations apply. This report is sponsored by Discover.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Whatever you're doing, going about your day, wondering about how you're going to get through it, what you got to do, it's important to keep things in mind of what you need to accomplish, but something you can keep in the back of your mind for a little bit extra peace of mind is knowing where to go when you end up with those day disruptors, those minor medical emergencies that leave you unable to continue on but not sure what to do. The resource I trust and have in the past with me and my family when we are in those situations is Upper Valley Urgent Care Center, 121 East Red Road. They are available for you 7 days a week, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., so available when you need it to be able to continue on with what is planned. Plus, they are an Upper Valley, or they're VA-authorized urgent care provider, so they can handle you for a wide swath of issues, including minor medical treatment all the way up to x-ray capabilities. Dr. Carpenter and his team have 20 exam rooms to help you out with their fast and friendly 5-star medical treatment. Again, no appointment needed. Everything from aches, breaks, sprains, bruises, all of that stuff ready for you this holiday season. Upper Valley Urgent Care Center.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. As fully expected after that bit of an extended interview, we had a lot of comments, a lot of conversation, and we'll get into that here through the rest of the hour. So that number to call into the show is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Just as a reminder, since people sometimes don't quite get it, we will delve into subjects and talk with just about anyone about them. Doesn't necessarily mean we agree with them. Just to make that perfectly clear out there, in case anyone is drawing conclusions, it's an important subject, and this is one of the organizations locally that has been doing study into it, but we will definitely have the conversation about what it means here, even though we have John Brownstead letting us know that Dismoto's lawn for the last time of the year now. Congrats. I need to remember to change my watering system as well here. Yeah, a lot of conversation going on about that interview and a whole lot more. James Ratcliffe saying about that thing we mentioned at the top of the hour there about Samaniego and Lisa, the county judge and mayor respectively, with their news conference a little bit earlier. Anyway, that they're not going to be putting in mandates, but some not liking the results of it here. But anyway, getting to those calls in the line here. Again, that number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Anthony on the east side of the line right now with us. Anthony, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Afternoon there. What's on your mind?
Listening to, I think her name was Anna.
Hannah, yeah.
She made fantastic and compelling points and examples as to what dangers exist when drug cartels, human traffickers, sex traffickers get the upper end on a society.
Mm-hmm.
It is extreme and very good example she gave of how people's lives are devastated and they have to find a place to run away from that. My question is, what are we to do when we have open borders and these cartels come and go as they wish and start taking hold of our streets?
Mm-hmm.
Where are we supposed to run to avoid or to run away from that? And why should we be looking at where to run away instead of securing the safeties that we've acquired through painstaking laws? It seems that every time there's and I don't want to put a left-wing president, but a left-wing president, the cartels, the sex traffickers, they are having a field day. And back in 2008, 2009, a little program called Fast and Furious gave them all the weapons they want. Now people are still dying thanks to that. Who was the beneficiary? The cartels. My question is, to these same cartels that get to our areas and start maybe getting control over our society or police departments, how then do we fight them off at that point? So shouldn't it be better to keep the evil at bay? And that was my point. Thank you much.
No, sure thing. Thank you for those points there. I mean, there are significant ones, and frankly, in all these conversations that are being had, I think it doesn't come up nearly enough. It's almost like it's entertaining the point from the opposite side. I mean, it's pure politics that whenever we're talking about immigration, it's either pure secure or pure refugees, immigrants, all that kind of thing. It's never the point that I would like very much to know is that, dealing with the people that are coming from truly awful situations, asylum should exist, I do think, but there should never be anyone crossing the southern border that is not fully known, their identity, the existence of, etc. The fact that anyone can just slip across, particularly in this day and age, is just not tenable for the long term. It's not going to work. So the fact that it's only all one way or all the other is part of why I think we end up in this situation, because then you have different politics coming into play and there's only that singular focus. I don't think it should be a partisan issue at all. I think every administration should be focused on making sure that anyone who crosses into our borders in any way is known about and their existence basically recorded, verified, making sure that they aren't here for some malicious aspect, because as much as it's talked about in this community about people actually wanting a better life, wanting to work on it, sure, let's make sure that they actually are that. And that's one of my more significant points of disagreement when we talk about these kind of issues with some of the organizations in town, because that's something they're not talking about. And I fully agree here with that point. All right. We do have to take another break here real quick, already going too long, but we'll be back with more of those calls on the line here. So back here in just a minute with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Again, number 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Back in a moment with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Another tool to help track your health that is once again available in town is that of thermography, as in a heat map for your body, and Therapeutics and Thermography Inc. here in El Paso at 935 Sunland Park Drive, which is just west of I-10 and Sunland Park, just down the hill. They're inside Biometrics Health Clinic, which is, it has a lot of interesting. Having gone through that facility, it's pretty amazing, but also the technology involved in thermography is as well very minimally invasive, a quick procedure that can help you understand what is going on underneath the surface, another tool in your toolbox, another weapon in your arsenal of maintaining your health. So in honor of all of that, frankly, Therapeutics and Thermography Inc. is continuing their $50 off all breast thermograms through the end of the year, because it's always the right month to be worried about serious conditions like that, and you can try it for yourself. Give them a call at 915-401-4053. That's 915-401-4053, or log on to elpasothermography.com. That's El Paso, THERMOGRAPHY.com.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Checking your El Paso traffic, got reports of an accident Gateway Boulevard eastbound at Geronimo Drive. It's the off-ramp on Geronimo where the crash is located, and it's backing up traffic eastbound on Gateway all the way back to the 54. I-10 eastbound is slow and go from Trans Mountain all the way down to Red. You've got about 10-minute delays I-10 westbound between Wrestler and Thorne, and Dyer Street and Will Ruth. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's Breakfast Biscuit Sandwich. Just $1. Wendy's knows a better breakfast starts with a better biscuit. That's why you can get a hot and buttery Wendy's breakfast biscuit with bacon or sausage, fresh cracked egg, and cheese for just $1. Get your Wendy's Buck Biscuit Sandwich today. Limited time only. at participating U.S. Wendy's.
How long was Neil Armstrong actually on the moon? When did Europe start speaking English? Did Marco Polo really go to China? Curiosity Stream is the streaming service for all things history, plus science, wildlife, and more. What's the real story behind the Mona Lisa? Read that back. What caused the collapse of Rome? We know. Where did we find mankind's earliest ancestor? Come find out. And right now, annual plans are 25% off, just $1.25 a month. Sign up today at curiositystream.com. From Oscar-winning producers Brian Grazer and Ron Howard, MSNBC Films presents the story of visionary French artist J.R. Paper and Glue. Friday, December 10th at 10 p.m. Eastern on MSNBC and in select theaters now.
We've lost so many people to COVID. So many moms and dads, favorite uncles, older sisters, and best friends. But vaccines can help prevent serious illness and death from COVID in more than 9 out of 10 cases. So, now almost all COVID deaths are preventable, and so are the broken hearts they leave behind. We can do this. Find COVID vaccines near you at vaccines.gov. That's vaccines.gov. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
There's no place like home for the holidays, except when you're stuck sleeping on the pull-out couch in the basement. This year, I'm resting my head at Red Roof, in my own comfortable, affordable, and clean space. You know, you can save up to 20% this holiday season at Red Roof locations. Plus, pets stay free at Red Roof, so Fluffy can come along for the holiday fun. This holiday season, book your own space at redroof.com and save up to 20%.
Check out the new Our American Stories podcast, the show where the American people are the star, telling inspiring stories of history, sports, business, faith, and love, and your stories too. Subscribe on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Monterey Asset Management, superior multifamily property management services citywide.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. It has been an interesting show so far here. If you're not over on the social pages, you're frankly missing out, because that's where a lot of conversation has been going on, as has been pointed out by some, including James Ratcliffe, Calvin Williams, A.W. Hill, and more, John Browse. It's fast. It's one of the more commented on shows we've had, to be perfectly honest here. So if you want to join in on there, particularly the Facebook pages, where the Thunderdome comments, where the Skeptic Society, or Squad as it was asked to be called here, I take skeptic, frankly, in a positive sense myself here, because I'm skeptical of just about anything until proven otherwise, with the proof being an important part to me. But y'all welcome to join in over there. But we'll take a couple more of those calls here in just a second. Also, to mention a couple of our sponsors, Talk El Paso, brought to you in part by Monterey Asset Management. If you're tired of the ups and downs in the stock market, consider investing in real estate. Monterey manages apartments in El Paso and helps investors buy, hold, and sell property. See their new website, m1ep.com. That's m1ep.com to learn more about the many benefits and long-term appreciation of investing in real estate. Call certified property manager Ray at 915-592-4549. That's 915-592-4549, as well as the Thrive 915 Food Fest and Texas Restaurants and Food Trucks. That's another great local area I've been going to. Their business mixers and just events going on. We've talked a little bit about it on air and had them on here, but partnered with them now to focus more on that, because supporting local in this season is almost one of the more important things you can do as a consumer in our area, but just also any time of the year. So Thrive 915 Food Fest on Facebook, and also Texas Restaurants and Food Trucks. Luke Panotto agreeing with Skeptic. Again, I think Skeptic is a positive thing here, but getting to a couple more calls on the line here right now. We do have Raul in the Northeast on the line here. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. Yesterday, Barbara, the Trumper, called to say that she wouldn't waste her time talking to me because I've already made up my mind, and that we couldn't come to a meeting of the minds. And that's because I rant and rave against her love, Donald Trump. You know, Barbara, a sit down with me would be for a debate in pursuit of the truth. Andrew could be the moderator. And a debate is not about a search for common ground. It's about the better argument. Barbara is just scared of being confronted with the truth of her love, Donald Trump, just like he and the Republicans are scared of the January 6th Commission. And I think the live witness testimonies that we'll be seeing early next year are going to be devastating for Donald Trump.
I do have one question I want to ask here on that point you brought up there. Would there be any circumstance that you could even imagine here in which you would be willing to, given the points that you have espoused here, change your mind about the former president?
No, not at all.
Well, I think that more or less answers the question there, because I think a lot of people are interested in discussion, willing to, change their minds if presented fully, even though changing
my mind about what? What about him? I mean, that he didn't incite an insurrection, that he didn't brag about sexually abusing women.
I mean, literally any circumstance you can even think of here, but I think that does answer a question here. So, I mean, I'll take it into mind here about having a debate, even though the people involved in the debate might be changing their minds. It could be useful to people just watching it, but I mean, if you literally cannot even on your own imagine any circumstance in which you could possibly, in the realm of possibility, I think you're saying more than you mean to there. All right, we have time for one more quick call on the line here. We do have a Tony on the west side right now. Tony, thanks for joining us.
And listen to me very carefully, and your host, who was the guest who was on today. I want you to imagine a raft that only can carry 10 people. The 11th person on the raft would sink it, okay? So the raft is the U.S. It's got 10 people. And as you're in the raft trying to find safety, there's a fella in a little island yelling out, help, help, help. But the guy has leprosy. And when you let that 11th person get on the raft, you're going to sink the whole raft trying to save someone. Now, let me explain to you your mistake. And by the way, you let the cat out of the bag when you blame the right-wing government. And listen very carefully. There's a professor from Princeton who's already done the math. The people who need asylum, the people who need this country's food and resources will always outnumber the resources that we have. The answer, Ann, is not for you to be a bleeding heart and keep helping people. We're compassionate too. We understand. We know the pain of people hurting. We know the pain of children being sick and so forth. But what you need to understand, Ann, is that the solution is not for everybody to jump on board the U.S. The solution is for people to change their behavior, their government, their policies where they are. We cannot hold the whole world into this country and maintain our standard of living, much less survive. You need to understand that, Ann, and the rest of you liberal Democrats, you need to understand the countries that are suffering, the countries that have gangs, that they have murder, that they're all seeking asylum, they're all hungry, they all want jobs. They need to change their behavior, their government, their country. But otherwise, the whole 2/3 of the world want to come over here. And we, the people who established this country, they had a different philosophy, a different government, different Bill of Rights, a different behavior that produced what it produced. So, Ann, as much as I wish I could agree with you, you are a left-wing kook. Because if you think that you can save the whole world without destroying this country and the economy with the $30 trillion that we already have, the math doesn't work out, and the math doesn't work out. Google the Princeton professor who did the math. This country cannot take all the people who want to come here. The people in their own countries need to fix their own behavior, their own country, their own laws, and so forth. And until we invest money in that, we're never going to have a solution. And
well, thank you for those points there. Again, we fully encourage the discussion about these issues. Don't find myself 100% agreeing with anyone we frankly ever had on this show here. So just to dispel that notion, but we'll have to leave it there for today because we're out of time here for this program. We'll certainly get into it here more tomorrow because, that interview, we went into a lot of issues that have been pent up for a minute that we've been to discuss about, but we'll have more discussion and more issues here on the line here with Talk El Paso tomorrow, 4 to 5 p.m. and more issues going on. Stay safe out there. Like Twitch motorcycles around the road. Have a great evening, y'all. With another Medicare moment with Eric with Advocate Health Advisors now. Is there a lot of confusion with the VA and Medicare working together?
Unfortunately, there is, due to the misconception that Medicare benefits negatively affect your VA health care. Almost 60% of veterans aren't enrolled in their VA benefits. And what we do is we help them to coordinate these two. We partner with local certified veteran service officers to get veterans the expertise they need on how to navigate their health benefits through the VA. Then we provide options and choices to add a complementary Medicare plan to that.
So for more info about this, call Eric, your local advisor, wherever you're hearing this broadcast at 1-800-876-0214. That's 1-800 876-0214.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Checking El Paso traffic, Gateway Boulevard eastbound to Geronimo. There's a crash on the Geronimo on-ramp that's backing up traffic all the way to the 54 eastbound and Gateway. I-10 westbound between Wrestler and Thorne. Look for slow and go traffic there. I-10 eastbound between
News on the hour and a
Red.
half.
It's about 5 minutes away. So
News Radio
traffic. Jerry Edwards, El
690 is
Paso traffic.
KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. The